That is a loud speaker. Oh my God, that speaker is loud. Good morning. This is another or first episode of Waking Up Wednesdays or Waking Up with J Essence. And while you've probably seen like two or three others, those were all preseason. Bam, we in the game now. You know what I'm saying? You're like boom, 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 January 5th. And like I said, well, first, my name is J Essence Journey. And for those who don't know me, hello, it's so nice to meet you. And for those who do, hey, what's up? It's your girl. Um, so the whole concept of this is number one, I am reaching out and branding my message and goals and expectations really towards a larger audience. So hence we're starting a podcast. And I think in the midst of creating this podcast, it's got to kind of redefine and design what it's supposed to be. I literally read and I'll tell you this piece that you probably should do 10 episodes before you really know what your mantra or your thing is going to be. And so I did not want to get stuck so hard on the concept and conceptualizing and making it perfect versus just going out and doing it and allowing our conversations, topics, and everything to brand themselves. And I do think that if you are a creative or if you are a person who is trying to do or accomplish or be things, you have to get out and mess up. You're going to have to get out and get dirty and get sticky in order to know what it should look like cleaned up. And so I'm going to give you this like really brief story. I always have these brief stories. That when I was going to obtain my master's, I was going to obtain my master's. And so I am an educator and I actually got my teaching through alternative certification. That means I did not go to college to become a teacher. I went in actually for broadcast journalism. Now, I really wanted to become a producer. Like, even in my heart and love, I still have visions of me producing. Issa Rae is one of my idols because that was just my heart. My heart was radio production and television production. So that's what I went to school for. And then bills set in. And I would say this is part of it. One of the things that I did not get in college was the idea of money, concept, training, finance. And so the other thing is that when I started my career in journalism, so this is 1990, and the idea of internships was so big. And in order to get somewhere, you intern. Well, the situation, and I'm going to tell you, this is my fault. I did not ever go to career services, like that little building with people who know where jobs are, which I probably should have. I just thought I knew everything. But when it came for me to get into that field, everything was so internship ish. It was like I literally was penny pinching and I couldn't figure out how to live and to get that. And so I kind of really did come out the field. And my first job, let me get this correct. My first job, I agreed on a salary of 18,000 to be a production manager for 3 radio stations in Tennessee. Bad advice, right? And I think I was going after the title more than the money and just, oh my gosh, lifestyle. And then there were some hard lessons that I needed to learn in the midst of that. But that, job didn't stay too long. And and I say that because it progresses up to how I got into education because I needed a stable field. Like, so when I try to go corporate America, it just did not work for me. And as much as people love my personality, I hate sales. I absolute hate selling. Even to this day, I rather give you information and you take it. Like, I like presenting information. And so there's this guy named Myron Golden who I absolutely love, who's helping me create my mindset as an entrepreneur, only because I always looked at sales as you must, because that's the driving force behind sales. You must, instead of he says he provides, like you provide this opportunity for people to gain information and they know that by getting it, they're better. And so that's a big mindset. So You have to understand. So after college, I struggled a lot, a little bit, a lot of bit, a little bit, a lot of bit. I was waitressing, I was doing this and all these other things. And so I stumbled into, well, I'll go ahead and tell you the whole truth. The whole truth is that my mom threatened me. My mom was like, if you don't get your life together, you're going to go to Texas Southern University and you're going to become a teacher. And I was like, no, because that was kind of like my family. I was like, I am not teaching. Y'all tripping. I'm not spending my life with kids. I am corporate. I am, such and such GPA guru girl. Like, I was supposed to be Nia in The Best Man, like BET, doing all these things. That's what I was supposed to be doing. Well, that led me to going to Houston and saying yes to this lady who offered me like this random job in Chicago. And it was working for a nonprofit. I say that it's this time, nonprofit. It was grassroots level. And I was just the assistant, a personal assistant, which I actually love the work if the organization was legit. And so it took me like 3 months working there when I was like, yo, these pictures are called stock photos. Like, these children are not pictures of you with kids in Africa. These are pictures of kids in Africa. Like, it was just a whole bunch of, I found out how much stuff. I was living with her. Whew, I learned some lessons. And so I do remember, like, after that, kind of ran away. I ran away from some things. And I was in a friend's house and she was letting me crash there for a month. And I said, okay, give me 1 month, God. I'm going to find a job doing what I want to do, or else I'll just go back to Houston and become a teacher. And that was really my attitude. Like, I'll do this teaching thing. And so I found a job working at Boys and Girls Club, which I absolutely loved, was there for 3 years, and was starting to get my master's in nonprofit administration grants. I loved that. I loved that course. I actually, it was 8 hours away from graduating. Reason why I did not is because, true story, Bush was elected in office, and I was like, yo, I don't know a lot about economy and people giving, but the one thing I knew about working in nonprofits is that we were constantly having to raise money. You had to raise money for salaries. You had to raise money for such and such. You had to raise money. You had to raise money. You had to raise money. And even me trying to become over my own nonprofit, which that was really not the goal at the time. I just wanted to run and be in that world. I was kind of like, yo, I'm not trying to beg people for the right to give me a salary. And I don't know why. I just foresaw the economy tournament. I don't know why. I just was like, I don't think people are going to be as willing to let go of money, and there's going to be tighter grips. And I then made the decision to apply for a program called Golden. It was called GATE, Golden Apple Teacher something, but it was like, and so I actually became one of the few members of GATE. That's a whole nother story later. And that was an exclusive program for alternative certification. And I got into teaching my way. Instead of just listening to my mama the first time, and had to go through, I think, a UIC program, and then did that program. And just, that is how I became a teacher. Now I forgot why I said all this stuff. Oh, so the story is that when I went into teaching, I chose like this career. I actually loved it, and decided to leave Chicago to pursue my master's in educational leadership. So when I went to Oklahoma, Southern Nazarene, to become a teacher, not become a teacher, but, to get my master's, I then had to go into teaching again. So the entire time I was teaching, I'm in alternative schools. Yeah, non-alternative schools. I'm getting alternative certification. I'm in schools that need teachers. Like, I am in lean on me schools. And so when the opportunity presented itself for me to get my master's, one of the key things is that you must be mentored. And I was really like, okay, I want to be mentored in such a good place. And I had an opportunity to go to like the top school in Tulsa and become a teacher there, which meant that I was going to be underneath this wonderful principal. I was so excited, and got blocked and went to, I don't even want to say, my students going to be like, don't you say, I know what you about to say. Y'all know y'all was crazy. Y'all was crazy. And so the school that I went to was like, hood, hood. Like, I'm going to lie. Like, do I need to tell y'all what happened to y'all eighth grade prom? Do I need to help remind you? And so I was livid because the whole purpose of me going to the school was so I can be trained by the best. Um, Turns out that was a horrific. Let me not take that back. I'm not going to say it was a horrific year. I learned so much, but that year, my student murdered another student, and man, it was that. It was like so many gang fights. It was so many of my babies trying to do so many things and trying and working through, meds, poverty issues, understanding, and everything else like that. That authentically, the leadership that I learned in that situation surpasses any type of leadership that I could have learned through book or paper. And I don't like to admit that until later, but that block was actually such a good move for me because it truly shaped who I was and who I should not become as a leader. There was some emotional things that happened, and I got to see, the true character of who I can be. And then that's when I knew I could lead. I knew that I was, this person that could do these different things. So that darkness, that treachery helped design and develop what I really am. I don't think I knew the type of teacher or educator or even leader I could be until being in those dark positions of pressure. And so all of that, I totally forgot. Like I halfway want to rewind what started me on this track. But when we now talk about the moves and things that it's making to be an entrepreneur and, come out of this lifestyle where I'm so used to the education world. And now I'm totally in this other world. There are so many new mistakes and mindsets and moments that I'm having to constantly look towards and redefine and redo. And you guys are now on the journey. So the question goes to how authentic should I be in this journey? How authentic should I be to, the lessons that we must live and the lessons that we must be? So the whole purpose of, I hope, because my brain is there, of me having this conversation and going to this podcast is just being open with the progress and the process, because I had to relearn who I was in college. I then had to relearn who I was then as a student out of college. And that was some hard lessons. I had to relearn who I was changing career paths, had to relearn who I was trying to become a leader. And that's a whole nother story there. And then once I got to what I thought I was supposed to be, and this is the whole purpose of this podcast episode, is getting to the birth of J Essence and how she got here. Because I did it, y'all. Like I legitimately did it. I legitimately was kind of in the peak-ish of what I wanted to do. And when I got there, it just did not make sense to me. There's a couple of things that don't make sense for those of in education. And so you can put this into your own life. Education is very brilliant at making you have the black and white done in order to progress. That you should not apply for a job if you have 3 years experience and not the 5 years that they ask for. Like, y'all don't understand. 3 years in the hood surpasses 5 years in regular school. Like there's so much that you can learn. And so in education, it's like you constantly had to fit the mold in order to be there. And sometimes, like these miracles are given to people, but really even then, sometimes you have to go back and be like, okay, you'll get your such and such degree, get your such and such certificate, go get this education. And that's the world I come from. You constantly have to do these steps to get there. So to turn around and get to a peak, and that's one of the secrets I have. I never got to the um, checklist. And I'll tell you why. It's just little stupid stuff. Like I could never apply to be a principal because you should have had 5 years as a vice principal and I had 3.5 or 4. You know what I'm saying? Like, um, I constantly was like, I couldn't apply for the student forgiveness loans because I had a break in employment for 3 months. And then I could not apply for student forgiveness loans because I was in administration. And I was not a teacher. Like it's so many little things. Like every time I progressed up, which should have been a great thing, it seemed like there was a barrier because you didn't take your time or you didn't do it this way or that way. So to come from all of that and still um, be happy where I found myself because I really thought I was going to be a principal. I really thought I was going to build and have my own school. And I put that out there now because who knows? But those were entities that were blocked again. You know, I did try, I did, do these things. I did follow the rules down these paths only to be at the last second told no. Um, so through all of those things, I still found my happy career point being the district lead of math curriculum, math professional, like teacher training. And that's the thing. I loved working with teachers. I loved working with teachers, training teachers, professional development and everything. And work Houston, Texas, dude, I was happy. I was happy in my profession and I wasn't. That's weird, isn't it? It's like I got to the top. I'm where I'm supposed to be. I have the title that people respect. I do the work that I love, but there was something intrinsic that felt like I was still fighting. And I don't know if the fight comes from that we're so often fighting to get places that once you get somewhere, um, it feels foreign. That's not true. And I'm going to tell you why, because on the hindsight of things, but for me at that time, it was just very weird. It's very, very weird. And I felt like I was always, kind of looking after my back and things, I made some mistakes. I will admit to that. And then those mistakes were never really allowed to be lessons. I felt like those mistakes were always defining moments. And it's just like, at what point in time do I not get to learn and grow, especially if my mistakes are not detrimental to anyone? Like, I would say that all of my mistakes were fixable. I could fix them, but instead those mistakes were allowed to define me. And then when you allow a mistake to define you, dude, your self-esteem gets slaughtered. You don't think that you're really as good as you're supposed to be. And that's one thing that I personally do hate. In like the career path or something, sometimes you and a job just don't fit, but in order for people to make it like you don't fit, they end up coming at your psyche or your emotions or your skill strengths versus just having a conversation of what we're looking for and what you're doing. It just doesn't fit, and you don't have to change who you are to fit it. Let's just have an adult conversation. Like, that doesn't happen. So in the midst of that, career wise, I just didn't know. And I didn't know if I was looking for a next step. I didn't know if I was trying to run to a place that would acknowledge my greatness. While, oh God, real moment, running from my weaknesses. Um, and we get to this point where there's some other things. We get to this point where I'm in Houston and I'm about to cry. Here we go. I'm in Houston and I'm in this house I loved at the time, renting. I'm in the wards. I lived down the street from the arena. And I loved where I lived. I love my friends. And I'm there And I having these weekly Friday moments of, I don't even want to say crashing. It's like hiding and escaping and being alone. And I just remember that I would come in with some Frenchies, if you know that, and I would go by the daiquiri shop because y'all don't know about them drive-throughs daiquiris. And I would come in and close my door, and so I probably should have known I was depressed because I would put the food down. Okay. Um, and I would go up to the top floor of my townhouse, and there was my master bedroom, and there was like this office area, guest bedroom, that I just used for office because I was working from home at the time. And then there was this corner, and I remember the corner with the glass, I mean the mirror, and there's the couch, and I wouldn't sit on the couch. I would sit in the corner like I was a little child, like go to the corner. I would sit in the corner, and I remember that room being white, and I remember wanting to be small. I wanted to be small, and it was, everything was piling so bad. And I am so smart, and I couldn't figure out the next step. I couldn't figure out the step ahead. Um, that's where my anxiety was. That's where I was. And I think that in kind of every phase of life that you can have, I felt that I was hiding or lying in some way in every one of them. I was not a good child spiritually, because why weren't things being answered? I'm praying for manifestation. I have, these things here. I have these crystals here. I have my Bible. I have, and it's just like I couldn't, this is all at the time, figure that out. I couldn't figure out financially things that happened, and why is it I can't prepare for next? I'm always here for now. I could not figure out career, because it felt shaky. It just didn't feel stable. Couldn't figure out romance and love and dating. I was just ugh, couldn't figure out health. Um, yeah, I'll tell you, I have PCOS, but there was a whole bunch of other stuff, but just couldn't figure it out. I couldn't figure out a lot. The one thing I know I did have, and I will never disrespect the life that I did have. I had friends, amazing friends, amazing friends. I had family. Loved it, but I couldn't figure out me. And that was the biggest thing. And then I think that I didn't feel like it was fair for me to show up in places and not be 100% who I was supposed to be. Like, even now, my family is not shocked about, how I talk or different things now. My friends are not shocked, but I am, because I always felt like I had to be quiet in certain places. Like, if you got to know the real me, and part of that comes, from dating, like, oh, you get to know the real me, and a guy is like, hey, really tone down on the real you. Yeah. So there's so many things that happen in your psyche. There were so many things that happen in my psyche that just helped me lose who I thought I was supposed to be. And that is when um the nudge to be greater came. But I don't even know how that nudge came. It came from the Dubai trip too, but it wasn't to be greater. So I have to explain this nudge. There's this nudge, and I'm so grateful for that piece of, I think you don't have to be here. You don't have to be here. Like, that was the nudge. You don't have to be here. And that also comes from me moving a lot. Like, I moved around when I was a child. I moved around, started a career. And so one of the things that we fail to recognize is that we in our community see stability as success. We see you staying at a job for 20 years as a successful story. So for me, when I moved to Houston, and it was kind of told to me, are you going to settle down? So that was a big deal for me, for my family. Like, I am going to settle down. I'm not going to move around anymore. I'm gonna hunker down. That was the word. I'm gonna hunker down in Houston. And so for me to get this nudge, it was kind of like, but I went on this big trip with my homegirl Cass, and I was in Dubai, and that's when more started speaking. More started speaking and became that opportunity. And so the evolution of J Essence and where we are now is that getting to Dubai was hard. Let me go ahead and go through that. Getting to Dubai, I got to Dubai with literally $72 in my pocket. Like, I paid off all this, I paid this. So it was supposed to be an all exclusive trip. But things had happened. So, oh, that's because Hurricane Harvey hit. So there were so many things happening, but I didn't give up on the trip. And so I got to Dubai. And one of these things that happens is when you get to these places, you're exhausted. And so that's one of the things when I talk to people about, oh, you're coming to Rwanda, like, chill out the first week, chill out the 2 weeks, like, just go and get rest. Because even when I was in Dubai, I was exhausted. And when you're exhausted, you can't hear or think about things that you should be thinking about. You're consumed with the little things. You're consumed with, just what you're coming from. You haven't let go of what got you wound up and got you there in the first place. And everybody has their own ways of releasing or healing, but that piece. So I do remember being in Dubai and still trying to carry like some airs, and it was tiring. And me and my homegirl, and then that was the other thing. Like, we paid for this expensive exclusive trip and we couldn't find washcloths. Like, that was the best being with my homegirl. Like, why is it that I'm here and I'm still having to go through headache? Like, we paid to be headache free. Like, this is some bogus stuff. So that trip was halfway bogus, like, here. But when we went to the mosque, I think I was just determined. I don't know why. I was determined to have an experience. And so, I got dressed in my little outfit. I was cute. And I was like, okay, I'm going to have an experience. I'm going to have experience. I'm going to have experience. So that's me going to the mosque. And the funny part was, it was in the bus ride. There was a light shining and the intendant was talking, and I looked out and I heard a voice, like, very soft, subtle, that said, "You can do this." And I knew it was like live and teach in the Middle East, because I had applied before. And so there was a voice like, no, you can do this, like, apply again. And I was like, what? Because I'm really good at one of those people, like, once you diss me, oh, it ain't no more, like, it ain't no boomerang. You don't get to throw me out and wait for me to come back. Like, so I feel like that, like, if I apply for a job at one place, so that's something you got to kind of get over. But that was just me and my ego. I have an ego. And so then the voice said, because the guy was talking, and he was talking about visa situations, which is why I'm big on it. And then he was like, there's an age cap on your visa. So the little soft voice was like, and you ain't got enough time. Like, and you ain't got a lot of time because you old. And I was like, dag, like, why my spiritual voice got to be like so cruel with it? And so that's when I came back to the States, and I didn't tell anybody that I started applying. I take that back. I told like maybe two people, because they helped me. And my homeboy, God, he's the best, because he's the one that really shook me very hard, because I think that I grew up in a mentality of being grateful or being humble. Like, I kind of talked to you before about, as a teacher, like, you're often not qualified for certain things. So you just kind of like shrug it off. Like, I shrugged things off, and he really shook me, and he was like, no, you are greater than what you said yes to. So you're going to take that paperwork and you're going to go back and reapply. And I was like, yo. And he was like, you will reapply. And so, because I had said yes to one position before, I said yes to a teaching position because I was just ready to go. And then he was just like, go back, go back, go back. And then that's when I came across and got the position to be a math specialist. Yeah, a lead. That was like my math lead at a school. And so, and then that's when I started realizing the mindset I had of, um, I don't understand. It was a limiting mindset. I have a very limiting mindset. I think I just really trusted a lot the entities that were in my life. Your school entities. I think that's how we got to this. Like, do this and you're good. Do this and you're good. Do this and you're good. And that's why I think there's such a betrayal feeling of everything that you told me to do. I did, but I'm really not good, and I'm really having to sneak to make these things happen. Like, I pulled out my 401k early. Um, and I know that's a bad thing. And then now in hindsight, I'm like, no, I should have pulled out of my 401k early, because here's these laws, like, because I'm learning about stocks now. You weren't taking care of me anyway, but I pulled out of my 401k early for the wrong reasons. I should have done this instead. Like, there's so much knowledge, y'all, and so much information once you break through um the glass ceiling. I'll put it that way. The glass ceiling is there, but the glass is breakable. I was going to say it's not as thick, but it can be. And so I think that for me, that limiting belief had created this beautiful cage. I know why the cage bird sings. And just because you get the best foods or the best such and such doesn't mean that you're not in the cage, right? I really like the glass box analogy a little bit better. I see it as the analogy of, have you ever seen like those kids or people who have like severe um autoimmune systems, so they have to live in a bubble, and so the parents feel so bad, so they provide everything in the bubble, and it still doesn't make the same as the outside. And if you don't have the right information, like, I feel like it's like that almost when they talked about the Truman Show, how they created him a whole world. And you should be actually happy and fine in that world, but it was all a facade. And so, coming out of Houston and moving to Dubai was for a good chance for me to start knocking down the pieces of the facade. Like, that was not the supreme awakening. That was just the pieces of it. And then the ease of being into patterns that puts you back into that. And so if I think I talk about anything next week, I'm going to talk about the patterns of breaking free and finding your own bondage, because we do that. I do that. Even though you're free, like, I have this wonderful freedom in front of me, but I find that my patterns or my habits can find my own bondage. And I have to be able to be conscientious of that. And what are we doing to break the bondage? I might as well, type this one up and do that. So, coming back to, when you're able to click open and start having the facade moved, and you have different frequencies, I'll say that frequencies, not frequencies, but frequencies. And I mean, that's different energies, different information, different, things slowly start to seep in. If you're alert and listening, more of the facades can trickle. It's kind of like a very slow peel, like taking off of the fester of the sore, like taking off the sores and being exposed to new light. And it's not a fast process. It's a very slow process. And so, that's kind of where, if I have to say, the evolutions of J Essence, how that came forward, that's part of the steps of how we get to be here now, and how I am here now in Rwanda. And what I will say, and I'm going to say for everything, Rwanda is not for everybody. Don't look at my life and say, I want what J Essence has, so I'm going to move to Rwanda and get it. Rwanda might not be your answer. Rwanda is my answer. Rwanda is my place. You have to do the research, and not just the physical research. You have to do the research inside you, to be able to open up and know what works. But my conversation has always been about, this is my life in Rwanda, because It's possible. What you seek is possible if you do what you need to do for you. And I kind of allude back because I'm going to end to in a lot of my situations, I truly ran from. I ran from a job because this happened. I ran from this because this happened. I ran from this because this happened. Um, the two things that are different with my leaving and my flights here is that I left America. I didn't run. No, I didn't run from America because there was nothing to hide. I was good. I was good. I knew how to live that life. I could stay if I wanted to. I just chose to leave it and try something else. So that energy was a different type of energy. It wasn't a struggle. It wasn't a strain. It wasn't that I must make it work and I'm holding on to you and refusing to let you go. If I didn't make it in Dubai, I would go to Malaysia. If I go to Kuwait, I would go to such and such. I just didn't want to be around the static noise that I was hearing. I did not run to Rhonda. I chose Rhonda. And I think that's a difference in like the flights and evolutions that I didn't run from America and run to Rhonda. I didn't need Rhonda to save me. Rhonda, oh my God, let me go. Rhonda offered itself to me and I said yes. Rhonda is like for me. All right, females, we're gonna have to do this. We're gonna have to do this. So you know, like how you be in like them bad relationships, and stuff like that. And it's toxic, but it feels good and it's safe and it's secure. But and then it's like that, right? Um, bruh man, got girls in his phone. Bruh man makes you feel like half a woman. Bruh man barely introduced you to his mama on accident and you was a friend when you did. Like all the conversations you had to do to fight for the right to be in a space that you authentically deserved. And then Rhonda for me was like, here I am with some good credit, baby. What you gonna say? I see you, girl. Let's have a talk. So I hate to say it like I would have said like for those people who've really been through ups and downs of relationships, and then they say like your soulmate is the one that you find when you didn't know you were looking for them or something like that. It's like, see how the light is shining? This is the light. That was like to me for Rhonda, like I'm gonna give y'all all the truth. Okay, here goes all the truth. Somebody has said, oh Jay Essence, I see you on the video tube. Yeah, yeah, yeah. Oh, I love you. I'm gonna marry you. You're so great. I never say anything to that because I have always stated that if there's somebody who um enjoys what I do and there's an attraction between us or of them to me, you're not going to turn around and pop in my comments and tell me that I'm your wife. You are going to be doing the work to be over here so I can see you and meet you and we can figure out our connection. That's period point. Like I've never said that out loud, but I'm telling you now. So I do not pay mind when people say, oh, they like me or whatever, they want to meet me. No, my husband, my lifetime partner is doing the work already to be here. Doesn't have to say nothing, doesn't have to do nothing. He's already doing the work. He's already doing, and trust me, I'm doing my work for him as well. That was Rwanda for me. That's how I know I can say this confidently because Rwanda does not need me for anything. Rwanda has already done its work. Rwanda has already done all this stuff and it's presented a place. And when I came into the place, I flourished. I flourished and I built and I'm building an empire where my family can flourish. My mother is flourishing. My auntie is flourishing. My friends are flourishing. And we come together in humbleness and new growth. It's the same concept to me. So what I have recognized is that when I have tried to make things happen because they're supposed to happen, because this is the way, and da 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 da, it could happen, but it doesn't have the same authentic feel. Like that was Houston. Houston was phenomenal for the time being. But now in my essence, when I let things happen and I listen and I now move into different ways, you have someone who used to be this teacher who is now an entrepreneur. You have someone who used to think about the checklist instead of now saying, I'm making and building my own list. You used to have someone who says, I only need this type of salary to be happy. And now you're talking about somebody who's talking about passive income and lifelong goals and, different ventures. I used to think this way. And now I'm in a position where I can think bigger and broader and abundantly. And I can attain all these things, right? Because I understand I have the skill set, knowledge, wisdom, and right. And passion. I'll give you that one: skill set, knowledge, wisdom, and right, and passion to be able to do this. And we're going to figure out a way. So, if I had to say this is part one, probably of like a 5-part series, I don't know. But if you're on the rhythm and roll and listening, thank you. But this was just the evolution of J Essence and just how we got here. And of course, I I tell you that I'm telling you the truth. So, I need a tagline. And honestly, this is so sad. I am going to end this because I'm hungry, very, and I got work to do. I got work to do, but I'm so grateful for the journey. I'm so grateful for the journey, and I hope that my words help in put in a nudge to you somewhere somehow of whatever it may be. All right, y'all. Wake up on Wednesday. That was a horrible, horrible. I need a tagline so bad. Tagline. And if somebody's catching this in the comments, I think I need to go into the like what I said about the beliefs with the boundaries. Like you could have free, you can be free with without with boundaries still.